They don't disrespect you all at once. It starts quietly, a tone shift, a joke that lands a second too long, a boundary tested in a way that feels small enough to ignore, but heavy enough to register in your body. Most people miss that moment. They feel it, but they don't act on it. And that hesitation is exactly where the problem begins. From that point on, every interaction becomes an experiment. They watch how quickly you explain yourself, how fast you react, how much energy you spend trying to be understood. And without saying it out loud, they draw a conclusion, not about your words, about your position. Here's the truth most people never face. Respect is not granted by intention, it's assigned by observation. People don't listen to what you say you deserve. They watch what you tolerate when the pressure is low. Especially when there's no audience. Especially when it would be easier to let it slide. You think disrespect comes from confidence on their side. It doesn't. It comes from certainty. The certainty that you will adjust before they have to. That you will fill the silence. That you will smooth the tension they created. That you will explain, justify, clarify, defend. Every time you do, you teach them something dangerous about you. The moment you start over-explaining, you hand away leverage. The moment you rush to respond, you signal dependency. The moment you try to fix how they feel, you accept responsibility for something that was never yours to carry. And from there, the dynamic is set. Most people try to end disrespect by being louder, sharper, more dominant on the surface. That only creates resistance. Power doesn't announce itself. It rearranges the room without moving. There is a single internal shift that changes how people treat you, even when you say nothing new. It's not aggression. It's not silence for the sake of silence. It's the decision to stop participating in dynamics that require you to lower your position to be included. When you make that shift, something unsettling happens to them. The usual cues disappear. They can't read you the way they used to. The predictable reactions are gone. And in that gap, uncertainty grows. That uncertainty is where respect is born. They don't suddenly like you more. They recalibrate you. And once that recalibration happens, the testing stops. Once you make that internal shift, the world doesn't change instantly. People do. Subtly, almost nervously. They start pausing before they speak to you. They measure their tone. They watch your eyes to see if you'll chase the moment the way you used to. And when you don't, something clicks in their mind that they can't fully explain. Because what unsettles people isn't confrontation. It's absence of need. When they realize you're no longer trying to win the interaction, no longer trying to be understood, no longer trying to maintain emotional balance for everyone in the room, they lose the script they relied on. The dynamic they were comfortable with collapses quietly. Disrespect thrives on predictability, on knowing that if they push, you'll respond. If they provoke, you'll react. If they cross a line, you'll negotiate it back into place. The moment you stop doing that, you remove the reward system that made the behavior worthwhile. This is where most people fail. They confuse silence with weakness because they've only ever seen silence used by people who were afraid. But controlled silence is different. It's not retreat. It's refusal. Refusal to explain your standards. Refusal to argue your worth. Refusal to chase clarity for people who benefit from confusion. When you don't react, you force them to sit with their own move. You make them hear what they just said without cushioning it. You let their behavior echo back at them in the space you didn't fill. And that echo is uncomfortable. It creates self-awareness or at least self-doubt. Both are powerful. At this stage, some people will test harder. They'll push again, slightly more direct this time. Not because they're bold, but because they're unsure. They need to know if the old rules still apply. This is the critical moment. If you break now, the game resets, and you lose ground permanently. But if you stay grounded, if your presence remains steady and your energy unchanged, something irreversible happens. They stop seeing you as someone to manage. You become someone to account for. And that shift changes everything going forward. Here's the part most people never understand. Respect doesn't arrive when you demand it. It arrives when others sense consequences they can't predict. The moment they realize you're no longer emotionally accessible in the old way, they start recalibrating their behavior around you. Not consciously, instinctively. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to call anything out. In fact, the less you explain, the stronger the effect becomes. Explanation invites negotiation. Silence closes the discussion before it starts. It tells them there is a line, and that the line exists without their agreement. This is where your internal discipline matters more than anything you say. You must be able to sit in discomfort without filling it, to let moments pass without rescuing them, to let people wonder what you're thinking instead of clarifying it for them. That uncertainty creates gravity, and gravity pulls behavior into order. Watch what happens next. The jokes soften, the tone shifts, the small disrespectful habits disappear on their own. Not because you trained them, but because they trained themselves around the new reality you presented. You didn't push them into submission. You removed yourself from the role they were exploiting. Some will feel exposed, others will feel challenged. A few will quietly resent you for it. That's inevitable. When you stop tolerating subtle disrespect, you force people to confront the version of themselves they were hiding behind familiarity. Not everyone wants to see that reflection. This is why the shift works. It's not aggressive. It's not performative. It's clean, cold, final. You're not sending a message. You're changing the environment. And once the environment changes, behavior has no choice but to follow. At this point, you'll notice something else. You start respecting yourself more. Not because you became louder or harsher, but because you stopped abandoning your own standards for temporary comfort. That self-respect is felt immediately by others. They may not name it, but they feel it. And once they feel it, the old dynamic is gone for good. What happens next is subtle but permanent. People begin to test the new version of you, lightly at first. A delayed reply, a dismissive comment disguised as humor, a small push to see if the old access still exists. This is not hostility, it's calibration. They're trying to understand the new rules without asking for them. This is where most people fail. They panic and overcorrect. They explain themselves. They soften. They reassure. And in doing so, they reopen the door they just closed. You don't do that. You stay consistent, calm, unreactive. Not cold out of spite, but composed out of clarity. Consistency is what turns a moment into a reputation. Anyone can act distant once. Very few can hold a standard without announcing it. When you respond the same way every time, measured, brief, unaffected, people stop testing. Not because they're afraid of you, but because there's nothing to gain from pushing. You'll notice the power dynamic invert quietly. They begin to adjust their timing to yours. Their tone becomes more deliberate. They choose their words with care. And none of this is dramatic. That's the point. True dominance never makes noise. It restructures the room and lets others discover the change on their own. At the same time, something internal locks into place. You stop scanning for approval. You stop wondering how you're being perceived. Your attention shifts inward, toward control instead of validation. That shift is rare, and rarity always attracts respect. Some people will drift away at this stage. Let them. They were attached to the version of you that made them comfortable, not the version that made them accountable. Others will step closer, sensing stability, strength, and boundaries that don't move. This is the moment you realize the truth. You didn't end disrespect by confronting anyone. You ended it by removing incentives. And once disrespect stops being rewarded, it dies naturally. Now the final resistance appears, and it's the most deceptive one. Not open disrespect, but subtle attempts to pull you back into old roles. They'll reminisce, they'll bring up inside jokes, they'll frame it as closeness, as history, as loyalty. It sounds harmless, even warm, but underneath it's a negotiation. This is where precision matters. You don't reject them. You don't indulge them either. You acknowledge without re-entering. A calm nod, a short response. Presence without participation. This creates a psychological gap they can't cross without changing themselves first. What unsettles people is not your silence, it's your selectivity. When they see that you choose where your energy goes, they begin to value it. Scarcity does that. Not manufactured scarcity, but the natural kind that comes from self-respect. At this stage, respect is no longer something you demand or hope for. It becomes the default. Even those who don't like you will adjust. They'll speak carefully. They'll avoid unnecessary friction. Because unconsciously, they've accepted that access to you is conditional. And here's the part most never understand. You didn't become harder. You became clearer. You removed emotional leakage. You stopped reacting in ways that trained people how to treat you. Once that training stops, a new pattern forms. You may feel moments of isolation here. That's normal. Power often feels quiet before it feels solid. But if you resist the urge to fill the silence with explanation, something remarkable happens. People meet you where you are, or they disappear. Either outcome is a win, because from this point forward, your presence alone sets the tone. This is where everything locks into place, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. The shift is complete when you no longer measure yourself by how others respond to you. Approval fades as a motivator. Reaction loses its grip. You move first, only when it serves you. People sense this before they can explain it. Conversations change. Questions become careful. Boundaries that once had to be enforced now exist without effort. You didn't announce them. You embodied them. And the ones who once tested you understand something important now. Testing no longer works. Pressure finds no surface to push against. Manipulation finds no opening. You're not defensive. You're unavailable to games. This is the real end of disrespect. Not confrontation, not dominance displays, but a calm psychological elevation that makes certain behaviors impossible around you. From here, you choose who gets access, who gets time, who gets silence. And that choice is felt immediately by others. Humans are trained by patterns. When your pattern becomes consistent, they adapt or fall away. If you've followed this shift without skipping steps, you'll notice it everywhere. At work, in relationships, in random interactions. The world reflects back the level you operate on. And now, one final thing. If this perspective sharpens something in you, don't let it stay passive. Use it, reinforce it, share it with someone who needs to stop being tested. Leave a comment with the word clear if you understood this shift. And if you want more breakdowns like this, subscribe and stay close. Because once you see how this works, you can't unsee it.